Hello everybody, my name's Paul Tace. Today we're going to be looking at flying your drone illegally. It's not going to be a lesson, but what I've got is Colin Froud here. He's from iRed. He's a senior instructor there. And obviously, Colin, you're not going to endorse flying illegally, but I do get a lot of comments under my videos saying it doesn't matter if you fly illegally as long as you're safe, or like there's no point keeping line of sight. It's a ridiculous restriction. What are your thoughts and reflections on that off the bat?
Well, what people might not be aware of is that actually, if we do break the rules, they are enforceable and we can be fined up to £2,500. So we really should be thinking about what we're doing. Okay. Obviously, we need to ensure we're not endangering people. Okay, that's one of the rules and regulations that we have to follow. Okay, so by flying beyond visual line of sight, we are endangering people basically and property, because we can't ascertain the environment in which the drone is now flying, okay, and what's happening around it. Our situational awareness isn't going to be good enough to be able to deal with anything in an emergency.
Okay, so just pretending I'm one of those people. So how dangerous is that really? It's not going to hurt anyone, is it, if I'm flying a 250-gram drone and I can't see where it is?
It's unlikely to kill someone, let's say that. You could slice someone's eyeball open with it, okay? Again, it depends whether they've got long sleeves or shorts and where it hits that person, but it could kill someone if, by the way that they were startled by the drone, that they then fell down and hit their head on the pavement.
Okay, so that's a bit extreme, is it? Like, or is this something that's happened, or
It's something that has not happened yet, but it could happen.
With
absolutely
more drones coming out. What about other aircraft? Is that a potential? How dangerous would a 250-gram drone be to a helicopter, for example? I remember, I think it's a story of South America. I can't remember the exact country, but there was pictures of a drone that had gone straight through a helicopter's cab. I don't think it was quite a 250-gram drone, but do you think they could do a significant amount of damage?
Anything coming through the windscreen will definitely, potentially be, life-threatening. Okay, and 250-gram drone, it depends on the aircraft, I would have to say, because if you think about the aerodynamics of an aircraft, okay, there's almost like a shield of wind, if you want to call it, buffer, with whether the aircraft's traveling through and hitting the air, you're going to get this buffer of air, which is basically, if anything hits that, it should just take it up and over and away from the aircraft. But if you've ever been up close to a helicopter, okay, the canopy screens are really very, very thin, okay, and also they're not as streamlined as some aircraft, okay, so they're quite flat. So in theory, a drone could go through that, but it depends on two things, doesn't it? It depends on how dense that drone is, because although it's only 250 grams, it depends whether it's a large 250 grams or a small 250 grams in physical size, the speed at which it's going and the speed at which the aircraft is going, okay, and the angle at which they hit each other. All of those things need to come into account in order for it to go through, the windshield, basically, of an aircraft.
So regardless of the drone and its size, it could potentially be fatal to either an aircraft or even a person if you do fly it out of visual line of sight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing with flying it beyond visual line of sight is we've now lost situational awareness of what's happening around our drone. Okay, we don't know what's happening because we can't see the drone anymore. So although we might have the video screen, we see what's happening from the camera, we've got blind spots everywhere else, haven't we? We don't know what's happening because we can't see, and that's the beauty of visual line of sight, is that you can see everything that's happening around your drone at all times. Why would you want to do this anyway? I mean, these drones cost a lot of money, so we want to look after them, right? Okay, we don't want, a hawk taking it out of the air, okay? Because birds can, if we fly too close to a tree, birds can come out, hit the drone, and not knock it out the sky. We could lose it, basically. So I mean, YouTube's full of people flying too far. Okay, I get that, but we shouldn't be doing it legally. It's not allowed, and common sense says that we shouldn't be doing it anyway.
for me, it's one of the hardest things not to do. See how many views you get for a range video testing the range of a Mini 2, and it's just they're clearly breaking the law. As soon as it's 500 meters, they've broken the law, regardless of whether they can see it or not. So yeah, it's something that's hard for me not to actually do and try. But again, I don't want to. I don't want to be in that category of just, oh, I don't care. I'm just gonna go do what I like.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's always going to be people out there that just don't care and will do what they like, up until the point where they get caught. And what you've got to bear in mind as well is the aviation industry is one of the few industries in the world where there is a whistleblowing policy.
Yeah.
Okay. Particularly with commercial pilots, if commercial pilots see someone who's doing something that they shouldn't be doing with their drone, whether they're another commercial pilot or a hobbyist, okay, they will basically place a report on you. And it's very easy to place a report, okay? All you do is you go to the whistleblowing part of the CAA, so the Civil Aviation website, fill in the form, and the CAA will investigate each and every report that they get, okay? And they will seek to prosecute where required as well. So, and first and foremost, though, the CAA are basically going to see if there's any changes that need to be made to, if it's a commercial pilot, need to be made to their authorization. So they might limit them on what they can or can't do. But secondly, it will definitely end up in prosecution.
Okay, and that, as you said, that can be an up to £2,500 fine.
Absolutely, yeah. And potentially, if there's additional things that it's caused, such as bodily harm, death, injury, destruction of property, that fee could potentially be higher.
And there's criminal charges if you've hit somebody and say you blinded someone, would that be a criminal prosecution as well?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It'd be a criminal court of law that you'd go to.
Okay, so you kept going on to beyond line of sight. What about just breaking it of her, like flying behind a tree by accident? That's
yeah. I mean, as an aviator, we should always have control of our drone at all times. Okay, so if we're constantly looking at a monitor screen, okay, really we don't have control of our aircraft at all times, do we? Because we should be looking at our aircraft, looking at our screen, looking at our aircraft, looking at our screen. Okay, and that's a bit tiresome. So the easiest way to get around that is fly with a friend. Okay, take someone else with you who can also enjoy what's happening, and use them as an observer so that they can look out and keep the situational awareness up for you. And they should be able to be stood next to you so that you both have virtually the same visual line of sight, and they can communicate any changes to navigation of your unmanned aircraft to you in case you are likely to fly behind something. Okay, and that's the way. That's the way to avoid it.
Okay, is it like a huge offence? Like if I say literally, you looked at your screen, you looked up, oh, you're behind a tree, push the drone up. Should I be calling the CAA and reporting that?
No, not really. I mean, you've broken the regulations. Okay, the regulations are there for a lot of the regulations are there for guidance only. Some are law, but a lot of them is guidance. But it's obviously a lot of this is down to common sense. Okay, and it all has to be weighed up proportionally, doesn't it? If we know we've made a mistake and we sort it out, just try not to do it again. Learn from it and move on.
Okay. The other one I've got, particularly with the new drones coming out, I say the DJI FPV drone, but more relevantly is the Mavic Air 2S. It's just come out. It's got a 1-inch sensor. It's it's about 600 grams. So it's a really desirable drone. The reason I haven't gone out and bought one straight away is for the fact that come 1st of January 2023, I'm not going to be allowed to fly this drone within 150 meters of pretty much anywhere. So again, there's people saying there's two sides of this. You've got, should I just fly it anyway? Should I care? And the other one is, how do we measure that? I had a comment before them, and I feel it's valid. It said, how do we know if we're 50 meters away from someone, or 49 meters, or 51? It's and who's going to know how? Is like there's a clear definition. How are we going to know when we've passed that clear definition?
Yeah. Okay. Well, part of your training that you would have done for your A2CFC would have been your own personal training. Okay, so practically going out and flying, and you have to sign a disclaimer to say that you've done this. Certainly for us at IRED, that's the way it works. Okay, so instead of having a practical flight assessment like you do for the GVC, For the A2 CFC, there is no practical flight assessment, but you have to conduct your own training. Part of that training is learning how to measure distances around your drone so that you then can work out roughly what 50 meters might look like at different distances. Okay, but it is difficult because, again, it depends on the terrain, if it's hilly, if it's flat, and also how far away you're flying. Okay, the depth perception is very difficult. So it is difficult to do. But again, common sense needs to prevail. If someone starts to approach your flight area, we're not going to be measuring it out to the nearest meter. Just move away. Just move your drone away from that. Let that person pass through with lots of space. And then once they're cleared, then you can move back over there again. That's the easiest way of doing it, rather than saying, oh, I think I'm about 53 meters away. Oh, I'm all right. I'll stay here for the moment. The other thing to bear in mind as well is good practice, good airmanship, is the one-to-one rule. So whatever altitude we are, okay, we should be at least that horizontal distance away from people, okay? Obviously, we need to maintain the minimum distance away from people anyway. But for argument's sake, if we're flying at an altitude of 60 meters, then we should be 60 meters horizontal distance away from that person. If we're flying at 80 meters, we should be 80 meters horizontal distance away. And the reason that's good practice is that if the drone loses propulsion, okay, suffers catastrophic battery failure, whatever, it falls out of the sky, it's not going to fall straight down. It's going to get blown by the wind, or the momentum that it last had in the direction it was flying will bring the aircraft down at a slight angle, okay? So again, that gives plenty of space for the aircraft to crash away from anybody.
Okay. And in terms of literally just ignoring the law, so say you're in an empty park. I've actually seen a video of another YouTuber, I don't want to mention who it is, saying that that he got in contact with the CAA, and he got an email back, and he's read out this email, and it's basically got the impression, and I genuinely think he's got the impression that it's absolutely fine to fly in the A3 subcategory, which would say 150 meters away from any recreational area. And as long as there's no other people in that park, that it would be okay to fly in that park.
No, you can't, because the park itself is a recreation area. We have to stay 150 meters away. It's regardless of whether there's anybody there. It's the same as going to a beach. Okay, beach is a recreation area. All beaches are recreation areas. It doesn't matter if it's empty. Okay, you need to have an A2 CFC qualification to be able to fly within recreation areas, and that's the key thing. That's the key.
And something I just want to highlight is I also sent an email trying to get the same kind of response, and I got something that was quite inconclusive. It says as long as you're 50 meters away from people, and then they referred me back to the CAP 722, and then you go for the CAP 722, and in there it's quite clearly defined that parks and beaches are. So I sort of going around in circles a bit, but you shouldn't be flying in a recreational area even if there's no other people in there.
The thing about the A2 CFC is that if you're flying a drone, which is sub 250 grams, then you don't need it, because there's no minimum distance you need to stay away from people or property. You just need to ensure that you don't endanger anybody, and that's the key thing, or invade anyone's privacy. So the thing about having an A2 CFC qualification is that it does allow you to fly within recreation areas, residential areas, commercial areas, and industrial areas. Okay. Otherwise, if we don't have that, and we're flying a drone that's 250 grams or heavier, we have to stay 150 meters away from those areas. Now, the reason that is that the CAA would like all drone operators to be able to have a basic level of qualification, and the A2 CFC does exactly that. Okay, makes everybody better aviators, safer flyers, and that can only be good for the hobby and the industry as a whole.
Okay, that's something that you offer, isn't it? I'll drop a link to the description below, in the description below, in case anybody wants to have a look at the A2 CFC, and if there's just outline what it is. Okay, so where can we fly then? If we're trying to find somewhere in the UK that's 150 meters away from all these areas in the A3 subcategory, where can people fly?
Well, you need to get friendly with a farmer, basically, because that's pretty much the only place you could fly, is just in the middle of nowhere.
And even in the middle of nowhere, you've got to be 150 meters away from somewhere.
Exactly. You need a big field, basically. You'd be good. But you'll only be able to go straight up and straight down.
Okay,
No,
so
in all honesty, yeah, you do need to get friendly with the farmer, but that's the best policy. There are other areas that you may be able to fly, but I
it's
can't
just
think of any.
it's just occurred to me as well. If beaches are included in that, if you'd want, even if you wanted to fly out at sea, you'd still have to be technically 150 meters away from the beach.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so well, you've given us a second location. Get friendly with the farmer, fly from a boat. There you go.
So with these legacy drones, unless you are looking at flying them illegally, they're not really going to be much use for much longer.
Well, no, because they're supposed to be.
Or an A2CFC. No, even with an A2CFC, if soon they won't be. So
Well, the transitional drones are going to. That transition period ends on the 31st of December 2022, which is next year. Legacy drones, so anything that's classed as a legacy drone that's 250 grams or more will only be allowed to be flown in the A3 subcategory. Okay, and the A3 subcategory means we have to stay 150 meters away from commercial, industrial, residential, and recreation areas, and 50 meters away from any uninvolved people. So at the moment, legacy drones are really good things to be able to fly if they're sub 250 grams, because we can fly them beyond the transition period, okay, which ends on the 31st of December next year. So that's really the best aircraft to have at the moment, because it's so much easier to fly. There's no limits on distances you need to keep away from uninvolved people. You just need to ensure that you don't endanger people, property, and that you respect people's privacy.
okay, so we've established that sub 250-gram drones are going to go beyond the transitional period and legacy drones aren't. And obviously there's a lot of people out there that are still buying legacy drones knowing that that period is going to run out. Do you think this is something that is going to be enforced more? Because I personally don't know of anyone that's ever had a conviction of flying in the wrong area.
So the thing with the new rules and regulations, Paul, is that they've now written into them about penalties, okay, and offences. So we know that you can be fined up to £2,500 for major offences, and you know, less money obviously for lesser offences. So it's there in black and white now, and it's only a matter of time before, you know, this becomes more heavily enforced, you know, by the police, by the CAA, so that hopefully, you know, we get to a stage where most people are now going to be flying legally in this country. And the thing is, we've got to remember why these rules are here. It's not to inconvenience us, it's to protect others, okay, and to protect the airspace being used by other aviators. So it's protect, you know, other aircraft, parasenders, paragliders, gliders, parachutists, and just people out enjoying themselves, you know. That's what it's there for. It's not to inconvenience us. We might see it as an inconvenience, but it's there to protect others, to make sure that we can carry on with our hobby in the future by flying safely.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. That pretty much sums it up. So looking at this, obviously we know we shouldn't be flying beyond visual line of sight, and it is something that is potentially really quite dangerous. In terms of flying drones sort of illegally, particularly after the transitional period or without an A2 CFC, this is something that obviously is illegal. You can get fined for, and it's looking like it's going to be enforced later on. They've brought in these documents to basically make it easier for them to prosecute people. So if anybody got into a bad habit of flying in these areas, it's something that will eventually come down on them, in your opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's only a matter of time. And, you know, I'm sure that there will be some, you know, higher profile cases that will make it to the newspapers, you know, nationwide, just to sort of try and get these messages out to people that it's not acceptable to carry on flying in this way.
Okay. That's pretty much all I've got for this one. Is there anything else you'd like to add on to that?
No, I think that's it. But, you know, from my point of view, just, you know, fly safe and have fun.
Lovely. Thanks a lot, Colin. And thank you everyone for watching. We hope to see you in the next one.